Hey guys, it's just about fall, and that means it's time to grow some grass. In this video, I'm going to walk you through my fall lawn program for this year. If you're new to my channel, click that subscribe button and also that notification bell to stay on top of all my new content. So the temperatures are finally starting to drop, and that means fall is just around the corner. And for all you lawn guys, especially the cool season grass, it is time to start pushing for some lawn growth. Now that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be doing a lawn renovation or overseeding. You could be just pushing for some new growth or recovery from that summer stress. I'm going to bring you through my lawn program for the fall because for me, it is season 2 of my lawn renovation. Last year, I did a complete lawn renovation in my yard, changed it over to a complete 100% Kentucky Bluegrass. I didn't intend to do this originally, but when I did the math on the amount of square footage that was going to be new seed or repair work, it just made sense to me to completely kill it off and start over. Besides that, I actually was more interested in getting a 100% Kentucky Bluegrass lawn to begin with. I felt it was more consistent, easier to manage than the mix of grass that I had years before. I'm going to start by saying that I did have some issues this year with my lawn because I didn't put down a pre-emergent this spring. I chose to do some overseeding instead because some of the areas that I had planted last fall didn't fill in great. I had some irrigation problems, were washout, and some rainstorms that also caused some washout. So I chose to do some overseeding instead of a pre-emergent. I will never make that mistake again. But I did manage to keep my lawn from going dormant. I do have an irrigation system, so I kept everything green. I just had some weeds to deal with, which, again, this fall we'll take care of that. I came up with a plan that's going to involve 7 simple steps that I'm going to go through. It's probably going to take me the course of an entire weekend to go through this, but it's going to basically boost my lawn into repairing itself and filling itself in for a really thick lawn for next spring. So the first step in my plan is to lower my mowing height. Typically you mow a little bit higher in the summer to avoid things from getting dried out. A longer lawn will shade the soil, and more green means more moisture. So now that the fall's here and the temperatures are a little bit cooler, I'm going to lower my mowing height. I was anywhere from 3 to 3.5 during the summer, so right now I'm probably going to drop it down to about 2.5. Maybe to 2, I'll see how bad it looks. Not only am I going to lower my blade height, but I'm also going to bag all my clippings. What I'm trying to do is prepare for the next step, which is dethatching. So I want to get all that material out of there, kind of clean up the lawn a bit, and just get everything ready to open everything up. Now, one step that I have to do before I dethatch my lawn is weed removal. Not all of you are going to have to do this, but like I said, I did have some issues, and I had one section of my lawn that actually had quite a bit of crabgrass. So I'm actually going to go out there and physically remove these weeds. At this point in the year, it's kind of late to assume that you're going to be able to spray some kind of weed killer, and those weeds are going to have time to break down and disappear. It's just too late for that to happen. And what's happening right now is those weeds are taking up real estate in your lawn. If you remove them physically, you're basically giving your lawn an area for itself to repair. If you don't do that and those weeds just stay there, your grass is never going to have the space to fill itself in. And then those weeds are going to die off over the course of the winter, and you're going to be left with holes in the springtime. And the springtime is not a great time to be pushing for your grass to repair itself like that. You want to do this in the fall. So if you remove them now and your grass repairs itself, come springtime, it's just going to look a lot better. Now I know removing weeds by hand sounds like a daunting task, but honestly, I went out there every evening for about a half an hour after dinner. Evenings were a little bit cooler, the sun wasn't glaring on me. Just grabbed some music and a knee pad and a bucket, and I basically just started pulling up some weeds. Took a few nights, it wasn't horrible, but you can see the results compared to what I had before. So the third step in my plan is to actually go out and dethatch my lawn. Now that step might not be for everybody. You're going to want to go out there and kind of test and see whether or not it's actually time to dethatch your lawn. I actually made a video on this. I use the Greenworks, the electric dethatcher. It's a great tool. I recommend everybody get one if you're serious about taking care of your lawn. It's fairly cheap, and the cost of this tool equals the cost of just 2 rentals if you go out and rent them from those home improvement places. So dethatching your lawn is probably the most difficult step in this entire program. It does help if you have somebody to give you a hand with this step, but if not, I recommend you just kind of break your lawn down in certain sections and take care of it one at a time. Basically, it's dethatching and then picking up the material that you've produced. I am fortunate enough to have a riding lawnmower with a nice triple bagger, but if you have a push mower, that will work just as fine. So the 4th step in my process, and this is something I like to do every fall, is check my soil's pH level, because fall is a really great time to put down some lime. And now that I'm going to be using a lot of fertilizers, it's really important that your pH level is where it needs to be. I actually made a video on testing your pH level using a soil probe. You might want to check that out. So once I tested my soil's pH, I realized I was just a little bit low. So I went out and I picked up a few bags of a fast-acting lime. This is a Stay Green product. It's the first time I'm using it, but they say you can actually put it down at the same time that you're putting down your fertilizers. If you don't have access to a fast-acting lime like this, I think before I used to use a Soil Doctor product. You're just going to want to put that down maybe a week or 2 ahead of time so that that lime has time to do its job and get your soil to where it needs to be. Because the next step in this process is actually putting down your fertilizers. I'm actually going to be putting down 2 types of fertilizer products, both liquid and granular. The liquid I'm going to be using is going to be just some Humic 12 and some Air 8. The Humic is going to be to basically enhance the uptake of this, of all the other fertilizers I'm putting down. And the Air 8 is going to help to sort of aerate that soil a little bit, loosen everything up so that the ground can kind of take in all these nutrients and take up the watering that I'm going to be having to do in order to push all this stuff into the ground. So a couple of tips for using these liquid fertilizer products. One, they can be extremely messy, so I like to always put down a piece of cardboard to protect my driveway or my garage floor. The second tip is I also like to pre-mix and dilute my products in a smaller bucket first. That way I can assure that they're properly agitated and diluted before I pour them into my backpack sprayer. The last thing is whenever I know I'm going to be spraying, I like to mow my lawn in a direction consistently throughout the entire yard. That way I can actually use my lawn stripes as a grid or like a guide to make sure that I'm getting a nice consistent even spray. I'm not planning on using any marking or indicators for this spray because it's just a fertilizer product. It's not like a weed killer or a pre-emergent that you have to be a little bit more careful with the overlap. So now that my liquid fertilizers have been applied, it's time for me to put down a granular fertilizer. And for me, I'm going to be using a starter fertilizer. Typically you don't use a starter fertilizer in the fall because it has a high phosphate number, and that phosphate number is for root growth, typically for starting a new lawn. But for me, I've got a Kentucky Bluegrass, and that's very slow growing. It's a great lawn for the Northeast because it's very heat tolerant, it survives the winters, and it's great for when you have kids and stuff running around because it self-repairs itself. But, like I said, it grows very slow. So don't think that you're going to be able to plant a Kentucky Bluegrass lawn and in one season it's going to be considered fully established. The last step in my program, which is probably one of the most important steps, is watering. I'm fortunate enough to have an irrigation system, but if you have to use lawn sprinklers, so be it. It is very important that you water all this stuff in. The lime, the fertilizer, the humic, the aerate, everything has to work its way into that soil. It is fall, so I am anticipating that we're going to have some rainy weather coming in to help me out, but it is very important that you start watering this stuff right away. If you can do it that same day, that's great. I'm actually into the evening hours by the time I finished my steps, so I'm going to set my sprinklers to go off first thing tomorrow morning. So if you follow all these simple steps, your lawn should recover from any of that heat stress that you had this summer. It's also going to thicken up really nice. which is not only going to help it survive the winter, but it's also going to help it look really great come springtime. Thanks for watching, guys. Feel free to leave some comments, and if you like this video, hit that subscribe button so you can stay on top of all the other videos I have.